Hey everyone, today's video is about something I think a lot of us struggle with, overthinking. You know that feeling when your mind just won't stop, replaying conversations, worrying about the future, or thinking about every little decision you've made? Yeah, I've been there. And honestly, it can feel exhausting, like you're living in your head instead of actually living your life. In this video, I'm going to share a real story about how I went from constantly overthinking and feeling stuck to learning how to let go, take small steps, and actually start living. It's not about quick fixes or perfect advice. It's about real moments, mistakes, and tiny changes that can help you enjoy life more, even when your mind wants to stay in overdrive. By the end of this video, I hope you'll see that life is not meant to be analyzed endlessly. It's meant to be lived, messy and imperfect and beautiful. So if you've ever felt trapped in your thoughts, this one's for you.
I remember the first time I truly felt trapped inside my own head. I was 22, sitting on the edge of my tiny apartment balcony in the middle of the city. The evening was quiet, and the sun had just begun to sink behind the skyline. I held a cup of coffee in my hands, but I wasn't drinking it. My mind was racing. It always raced. Every small choice I had made that day, every text I had sent or not sent, every word I had spoken or kept inside, it all played in my head like a film I couldn't pause. I used to think overthinking was harmless, maybe even smart. After all, I was careful. I was thorough. I anticipated problems before they happened. But over time, it stopped feeling like smartness. It felt like a cage. I was constantly exhausted from living in a world inside my own mind, while the real world, my friends laughing in cafes, strangers arguing on the street, the soft rustle of autumn leaves, went on without me. One night, after another day of endless mental loops, I finally broke down. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. Questions poured in like water through a broken dam. Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? What if I fail? What if everyone realizes I'm a fraud? I didn't move. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just thought and thought and thought. I didn't know it then, but that night was a turning point. Because in my silence, I realized something painfully clear. Thinking, even overthinking, didn't change anything. It didn't make me a better person, it didn't fix my problems, and it didn't stop the future from coming, whether I was ready or not. All it did was keep me frozen. The next morning, I did something small, ridiculously small, but life-changing in its own quiet way. I walked out of my apartment without my usual mental checklist. No agenda, no rehearsal of what I would say, no worrying about who I might meet or what they might think. I just stepped into the streets and noticed the world. The smell of fresh bread from a corner bakery, the way the sunlight bounced off the windows of tall buildings, a little dog wagging its tail at a passerby. Nothing big, nothing spectacular, but real. That walk didn't solve everything, and I certainly didn't stop overthinking overnight. But for the first time in years, I felt a tiny crack in my mental prison. I realized that life doesn't wait for your permission. It doesn't pause while you prepare or overthink. It moves, relentlessly. And if you don't step into it, you miss it. Over the following months, I started to experiment. I didn't have a master plan. I just made small decisions to interrupt my overthinking. Sometimes it was journaling, not with the goal of solving anything, just writing to empty my head. Sometimes it was saying yes to invitations I normally would have declined because I worried I wouldn't fit in. Sometimes it was sitting in a park and doing nothing, just watching people, clouds, birds, letting the world exist without me trying to control it. I remember a specific day when I tried something I would normally consider too spontaneous. A friend from college, Clara, called me late in the evening. Normally I would have hesitated, checked the time, my energy, my schedule, worrying about whether I really wanted to go. But that night I just said yes. We met at a tiny underground music club I had never been to before. The music was loud, the air thick with the smell of coffee and cigarette smoke. I watched Clara's face light up as she danced freely, and for the first time in months, I didn't analyze how I looked or how I sounded. I danced too, awkwardly at first, but eventually with abandon. By the time we left, the streets were empty except for street lights and the occasional passing car. I felt alive in a way that years of careful planning had never produced. On the walk home, I realized overthinking had been keeping me from these exact moments, the ones that mattered, the ones that actually built memories, not just anxiety. The funny thing I discovered was that when I stopped overthinking, life didn't become chaotic. In fact, it became richer. I noticed more colors in the sunset. I laughed more deeply with friends. I cried more freely, without judging myself. I took chances I never would have, applying for a job in another city, starting a small side project, even telling someone I liked them, fully aware I might be rejected. And sometimes, yes, things went wrong, but the mistakes were alive. They taught me things. They moved me forward. Unlike my endless mental loops, mistakes had a pulse. They were proof that I was living. I remember one evening in particular. I had planned to stay home, thinking about a conversation I had with my boss. I could feel the familiar swirl of anxiety and what-ifs forming. But something inside me rebelled. I grabbed my coat and went to a small live music show across town. The music was loud, the air thick with the smell of rain and roasted nuts from the street vendors outside, and the people were alive in ways I had forgotten existed. For 3 hours, I forgot my own thoughts. I danced, I laughed, I even sang along badly to songs I didn't know. And when I walked home afterward, tired and sweaty, my mind was quiet. Not because I had solved any problems, but because I'd finally stepped outside the prison of my thoughts and into life. Sometimes the lessons came in less glamorous forms, like the time I got into a small argument with a stranger in a coffee shop. Normally, I would have replayed the conversation for days, dissecting every word, every tone. But that day, I paused. I took a deep breath. I reminded myself, this isn't a reflection of your worth. It's just a moment. I let it go. And for the first time, letting go didn't feel like weakness. It felt like freedom. I also noticed subtle changes in my relationships. My friends reacted differently too. When I stopped overthinking every text, every response, the conversations became lighter, more authentic. I laughed more. I argued less. I listened more. And I realized overthinking doesn't just trap you inside yourself, it traps the people around you in your shadow. Letting go gave space for connection. There's a moment I'll never forget. I was standing on a hill overlooking the city at night. The light sparkling like a reflection of stars fallen to earth. I had no plan for what I would do next, no big life decision waiting. Just this moment. And for the first time in a long time, I felt it. Life was not a puzzle to solve in my head. It was a rhythm to step into, a breath to take, a story to be lived, not endlessly analyzed. And in that realization, I laughed quietly to myself. Not a nervous laugh, not a self-conscious one, but a laugh of freedom. Learning to stop overthinking didn't come with a guidebook. It came with mistakes, with failures, with days I fell back into old patterns, and nights I couldn't sleep because my mind was loud again. But slowly, imperceptibly, I built a muscle for living in the present. I learned that overthinking is often a fear of life itself, a fear of uncertainty, of failure, of imperfection. And the antidote is not control, but courage. The courage to show up even when you're afraid. The courage to let life be messy. The courage to trust that you can handle whatever comes next, even if your mind screams otherwise. I also learned that overthinking doesn't disappear completely. It still visits me, especially during stressful times. But now I recognize it as a visitor, not the landlord. I watch the thoughts come and go. Sometimes I journal, sometimes I breathe, sometimes I act, and sometimes I just let them pass. I've realized that life isn't about silencing your mind entirely. It's about choosing where to put your energy and understanding that living fully doesn't require perfect thinking. Over the years, the small steps accumulated. I learned to travel without planning every detail, to start conversations with strangers, to sit with uncertainty, to embrace quiet nights alone without fearing them. Every step, no matter how minor, chipped away at the endless loops that once controlled me. And with every small victory, life became less about managing my thoughts and more about experiencing the world. By the time I was 25, I could finally recognize the difference between living and overthinking. Living felt messy. It felt unpredictable. It felt real. Overthinking felt heavy, draining, and cold. I started choosing moments over worry, connection over analysis, action over hesitation. And in choosing life, I finally discovered the beauty I had been missing. The laughter, the sunsets, the failures, the successes, the quiet moments, the chaos, the people, the unexpected joys. If you ask me now what it takes to stop overthinking and start living, I'd tell you this. It starts with small, imperfect steps. It starts with noticing your thoughts without judgment. It starts with choosing life over your mental loops, even when fear whispers louder. It starts with the simple act of showing up for yourself, for others, for the world. Because life doesn't wait, and overthinking won't save you. Only living will. I'm still learning. Every day is a practice. But I can feel it now when I let go of the endless questions and step into the present. Life is not something to worry about. It's something to live. And that's enough.